I am now back for day 2 of the Castile EU4 playthrough. So, it has been a couple of days, it's almost been 2 weeks since I last streamed, but today it is hopefully going to be a very, very good and nice, long and relaxing stream. I have fixed some of the sound issues that I noticed last time. I have hopefully fixed some of the stream issues I was having last time. There were some dropped frames, there were some slow frames. Hopefully that's all smoothed out now. And to everyone on YouTube, I have figured out some editing software, so hopefully when this actually goes up on YouTube, it'll look all nice. But other than that, I am ready to play some EU4. So, to recap exactly what happened in the last episode, and this is not only for you, but also for me, because, like I said, it's been 2 weeks. It has been 2 weeks. So, the 100 Years' War is coming to a close. England has been kicked off of mainland France. Well, mostly. They've been full occupied by France and their vassal swarm. And it looks like Burgundy has decided to jump in on the action and get a little piece of England themselves. France is just holding steady. The English Navy makes it so that any attempt to transport troops onto the English mainland at this point would be very, very bad. So for Castile, though, for our country, I have conquered Granada, and I'm coring it. I can't remember if... Yes, so we took the decision that automatically converted the entirety of Granada. So we did that in order to be able to hit this mission, which gave us claims on Malta over here and North Morocco area, so pretty much everything over here. So we're pretty much expanding southward. Other mission-wise, we are hopefully going to get the Iberian wedding mission, or the Iberian wedding event. For those of you who don't know, in real life, I believe in the 1450s, the royal families of Castile and Aragon intermarried, and what ended up happening was a single monarch ended up ruling over both kingdoms, which pretty much meant that one kingdom was not exactly subservient, but the king prioritized one nation over this other nation that he was also ruling over. So in EU4, this is a personal union. It becomes a personal union. And in our case, very specifically, there's a event, right? I want to say it can start popping about now, either about now or about 1460. And if both Castile and Aragon have heirs, so these guys, and one of them is male and one of them is female, then the event will pop, and if I hit the correct button, which is let us bind our families together, then Aragon will become a junior partner, which means it'll pretty much be as though he's my vassal, just like Navarra is my vassal. On the same, sadly Naples, Aragon did release Naples this time. I know before the Emperor patch, if you were really lucky, Naples wouldn't release Navarra at all. They didn't get that event. So if you were lucky, then Navarra wouldn't try to declare independence. And when you got the event, not only did you get Aragon under a personal union, you got Naples as well. And that was pretty fun. But just to explain, my plan is to get Aragon into the personal union, because that, when you're playing as Castile, as long as you don't really screw everything up, usually you'll get the event. Alright? There's a good chance you'll get the event. And once you get the event, you get a restoration. Let me show you. You get this, and you get this restoration of union Castile on Portugal. What this means is you can use that reason of war to declare war on Portugal and get them under a personal union as well. So this means that as Castile, you are, first of all, you are one of the major colonial powers, right? But if you get Aragon and Naples, Aragon and Portugal under personal unions, that means they're also going to be colonizing the New Worlds. But they are under your, not direct control, but they are your subjects. That means you're getting a cut of every single ducat that they make, which means that when it's time for the New World to be colonized, that means you're getting a lot of money. You're getting all the income, or some of the income, from South America from your subjects. You're getting aid in your wars from both of these military powers, because that's what they are. Aragon and Portugal are some of the stronger nations in Europe. And a union of all three of them means that, well, France and England better watch out. So another thing I did last time was I disinherited the original heir to the throne that you get. For Castile, you have this 0 monarch point heir who's like 30. And he also has the infertile trait, which means that it's like a negative 20% chance to get a new heir. Which means that if he becomes king, you have problems, because that's just asking for either being put under a personal union or getting the, I believe it's under here, the Castilian Civil War event, which is an issue. What ends up happening is you just kind of get embroiled in a civil war, much like the English do, right? And the War of the Roses, I believe the War of the Roses has already popped and has already been resolved. And you can see Ulster has... How did they do that? What? Wow. Okay, so Ulster has conquered part of Scotland. The Isles are independent. So this is going to be a very interesting game for the British. Yes. That's done. What else was I going to talk about? Oh, estates. So, my way of dealing with the estates is whenever I get the chance, I call the Diet. Well, I wait to call the Diet, usually. So, I wait to call the Diet until I can hit this button, which is the Revoke Crown Land button. Meaning that I can take land away from the estates, and I can control more of the lands, have more influence in my country. I never touch the sale of titles button. I don't really like it. It just gives a lot of influence to the estates, and especially in the early game, it's not really worth it. So in 1456, I'll hit both of these buttons at the same time. By then, the nobility and the burghers, their loyalty will be around 47, 52. They'll be around their equilibrium, right? And usually the call diet will be enough to put them past that 50% loyalty limit, which means I won't even get rebels for revoking the crown land. It also means I won't get any of the negative effects of having low loyalty on your estates. But that is 5 years off. I don't have to worry about that. Subjects. Right now, I only have Navarra as a subject, as you can see. So, you can see I'm going to be explaining a lot about the UI because I can't be sure whether or not whoever's watching this on YouTube, or if someone just stumbles in on Twitch, whether or not they know what I'm talking about. So I'm going to be explaining a lot today. If that's not your cup of tea, just kind of hang in there. Well, I'll only have to do it I'll only have to explain most of the stuff once. And then if I do say something, and this is especially to people on YouTube, but also anyone here on Twitch, if I do say something that seems weird or that you have questions about, if you pop over to the YouTube VOD of this, which I will be uploading immediately after the stream, and leave a comment, I will get back to you. I would be more than happy to explain anything that was a little bit weird, anything that was controversial. If you have any tips, tricks, or comments, feel free to let me know. I'm more than happy to go over anything that I did in-game, and I'm more than happy to take advice. So, with that little spiel done, let's talk about the subject interactions screen. So, subjects in this game are very, very helpful, right? There are a lot of things you can do with subjects, just in general, right? There are a couple of ways you can get subjects, and I'm going to speak very, very generally. You can get them by events, so like the Iberian wedding event that I talked about earlier. Most major countries have a chance to get subjects through events, right? Castile has the Iberian wedding. France starts with all of these subjects. I can't remember if England gets any subjects through events, but it's irrelevant at this point. What we did in the last episode, though, was the most common, or at least I think the most common way to get subjects. We abused the monetary system and pretty much bribed the king of Navarra to become our vassal. Truly the greatest, one of the better features of EU4 is that even though it is a historical game, corruption and money still spin the wheels of power. So, let's find a nice little small guy. This guy. So we're just gonna pick a country at random, except one that's not vassalized. So see how this is this offer vassalization button, right? And these are opinions. I'll go back to that later actually, because I'm gonna go backwards. So when you've got a subject, you can see here that this is the coat of arms for the country. This is the name of the country. This is their opinion. More on that later. And this is the amount of money they're paying each month. So subjects have to give you half of their income forever. Which, if they're a small single one province minor like Navarra, isn't much. But if they're, say, Aragon, that money starts to add up really quickly. So as you can see, Navarra's actually losing money. Okay, well, it doesn't matter whether or not they're losing money. We get paid from their gross income, which is very nice, because that means no matter what financial situation your vassal is in, you always get the first cut. And if they start going into debt, that means that you can pay off their debts, and yeah. But this is the liberty desire. This is how much they want to break free of you and become independent again. As long as this number is green, they will not revolt. They are your loyal subject who will fight in your wars and give you all of their money if you ask. If this number is yellow, so 50 to 99, that means that they will welcome support from abroad to revolt, but they will not actually declare the revolt. When this number is yellow, they may join your wars, but they won't actually send troops to fight in your war. When this number is red, at 100%. Not only will they not fight in your wars, but they will happily revolt and try to stab you in the back with any support that they have. So you can see here the menu of what is affecting their liberty desire. So you can see the relative power of all vassals, opinion, trust, diplo rep, their development plays a role, and a couple of other things. This is the number of regiments they have. Regiments always are made up of 1,000 troops, so they have 1,000 soldiers. They can have 36, or sorry, our army has 36. And as you can see, it says a subject that has a greater army than its overlord will feel more inclined toward rebellion. As long as I keep a large enough army, they won't revolt. The AI in this game, you can say a lot of things about the AI in this game, but it's not always stupid. Subjects will not revolt if their overlord has a larger army than they themselves do, or their allies overseas do. That doesn't matter right now, because this is just subject, not colonial nation. This is where you would see some colonial nations, especially the South American ones, they will, instead of paying like the vassal fee that Navarra is right now, they'll send huge ships of gold, and they pay all their taxes at once. Every couple of years, they'll just send a couple of thousand ducats over in just one ship, and if it gets lost on the way, don't worry about it. But it'll show up, and it'll be a couple of years of taxes. And if they overpay, well, that's fine. We'll just conquer some new land for them. But that doesn't matter right now because Navarra doesn't do that. They pay their taxes on time. So over here you can see a little bit of information about Navarra themselves. They've got 7 development. They have 10,000 manpower, which for one province minor is pretty good. They don't have any port, any coastal provinces, so they have no sailors. And this is my fault. So last game I decided that I did not want a random noble to be ruling over my subject nation. If they want to be in my nation, then they need to have a ruler of my dynasty. So I installed the Duchess Leonor the First de Trastamara, and I'm by the way, public service announcement, I will be butchering the names of every single character that I ever try to say. Whether they're French, English, American, yeah, I know, American, English, doesn't matter. Their names will be butchered, and I will do it unapologetically. So, well, not unapologetically, sorry, but I installed her a couple of years ago, I guess. And, oh great, she's an embezzler. You know what? Okay. I mean, it fits. I used money to gain power here, so I guess she does the same. But, that is that. So these are the subject stances, right? So these stances allow us to set how Navarra will fight in our wars. So when they get called to war, these are focuses. So supportive, no focus, supportive, aggressive, passive, defensive, and siege. These are all pretty self-explanatory. For instance, no focus means they'll decide on their own strategies. Supportive, they'll stick close to allies, so if I have this 19k stack here, this 1k stack will follow me around, and if I ever get into a battle, they'll happily jump in. Aggressive, this 1k stack will go and try to kill a 10k stack and get destroyed, but they're AI controlled, it's not their fault. This passive, this 1k stack will literally sit and do nothing. Like, nothing. I don't remember. They'll pretty much do nothing. Defensive, they'll maybe stick around. Maybe they'll man this fort or something. They'll just do whatever. And siege, they'll just throw themselves at a fort and try to siege. Even though that may or may not be the best thing to do. Usually with very small nations like Navarra, I just say defensive. Mostly because it's just better. I don't like having like a one stack running around, because then it like catches my eye and I think, should I like make sure that 1,000 soldier stack survives? Should I? They're my ally, or they're my vassal. Maybe I should. I just find it better to let them stay home. Now, all of these are subject interactions that I can force upon my subject. So, in this game, trade is a big thing, right? Trade is one of the three major ways you get money. By forcing them to give me their trade, that means every good produced, all the trade stuff, all of that goes to me. By embargoing rivals, it just means that their trade can't be used in... I believe, do not quote me on this, I believe that embargoing rivals means that you take away some of their... In nodes where you both have trade power, they lose a little bit of money. I was never really quite sure on that. But Scootage, you can get more money and they won't be called to wars. I mean, I don't bother with this. I don't touch it. Most of the time, my vassals don't end up doing anything in war anyway, but that 0.15 ducat isn't exactly enough to get me to hit the button. These two, block and allow settlement growth. This is really important. One of the major features of a previous DLC, I can't remember which one, was that you could send a settler to a province in your nation. And that settler would sit there and work, and you'd pay the upkeep for the settler, and you had a chance to increase the development of that province by X. And as the development of the province went up, the chance to increase the development went down. So, the reason this is so bad is that most nations, some nations will get a settler, right? Portugal has one in their national ideas. They will always, every game, Portugal will get a settler. Castile, I will be getting multiple settlers because I'm going to be playing the colonial game. I don't know if Navarra is going to get a settler. I don't know. I don't even think, do they have their own ideals? Or their own traditions? I can't remember, but it doesn't matter. Settlers are these yellow guys. Colonies, same thing. To be clear, colonists cost, on most of the time, they cost 4 ducats a month. That is a huge amount of money, especially for a small nation like Navarra, who doesn't even make one. Regardless of their income, if a country like Navarra has a settler, usually they will put it in their capital or another province, and they'll pay, even if they only have 4.01 ducats, they'll still send the settler to grow their settlement. Guess what? The chance that you actually get a development increase is minuscule, even in a 7 development province like this. I always block settlement growth because it's just so not worth it. But going down the rest of the list, enforced religion is self-explanatory. You can force the nation to convert. This converts the king, the consort, and the heir, I believe. Even though you can't really see it here. But it does not convert the advisors. The advisors will stay whatever religion they were. But that's not necessary right now. You can grant provinces, though usually I don't touch this. It's pretty much irrelevant. Knowledge sharing for institutions, I'll talk about those later. You can pay off the debt. So if the smaller country goes into debt, which if you look at this, eventually they will, and they'll take loans to balance their budget. You can pay off those loans and get a reduction in liberty desire for a couple of years. It's a good feature. You can use prestige to placate local rulers, which is minus 10% liberty desire for 20 prestige. It's good. It's the last resort, though. And then you can seize their land if they have more than one province. Some of these interactions will really piss them off. Some of them will help their mood. It all depends on your playstyle. The military screen. 30 minutes of explaining. The military screen to go through. We're always starting at the top, going down. First is a somewhat newer concept, at least to me. When I started playing, Army Professionalism may have been a thing, but it wasn't something we worried about. Army Professionalism is how professional your army is. So not how disciplined, but how trained is the average soldier in your army, right? You increase this by drilling. So if I look here, that's exactly what both of my armies are doing right now. They're drilling. So gets low morale, full maintenance, but they get yearly army tradition, and there's a chance for the general to get a skill increase, getting another pip here, which makes him a better leader. The higher this gets, the greater the benefits. So right now at 2.89% army tradition, I get massively reduced mercenary manpower cost. That's because my army is so unprofessional that I can just hire mercenaries and it won't matter. However, as I increase army professionalism, that cost reduction will go down. However, the siege ability of my armies, the fire and shock damage that I deal, it all goes up. And that's massive improvements to my army and to our fighting ability. The AI doesn't do as much drilling as humans do, so this is a good way to get a massive advantage, especially in the lower difficulties, because in lower difficulties the AI doesn't have the same bonuses that you can get from this. And then of course there are these little bonuses. I don't really worry about them. But this last one at 100%, 50% general costs, and double army drill gain. Oh, by the way, it's not just professionalism that you get by drilling. The army itself gets these little drill pips. 16.17 out of 100. This in and of itself, this stacks with the army professionalism bonus. So this is an extra 1.6% land, fire, and shock damage, minus 4% of fire and shock damage received, and movement speed. In this game, movement speed is everything. Movement speed and maneuver pips allow you to position your armies to get better fights, so better terrain bonuses. They allow you to move your army into advantages. I'm speaking too fast. They allow you to maneuver your armies into good positions to destroy your enemies and win your wars. This is really good. And between wars, I belong to the school of thought that if you're not fighting a war presently, you should be drilling. That there are only two states of armies, at war and drilling. A lot of other players don't feel that way, but that's how I feel. And of course, these are the unit types we have right now. You can go through and you can see the modifiers that they get, the number of troops you have of each division, their cost, their combat ability. It's just, this is information you need to know if you are min-maxing the game. So if you really get into EU4, this page is, you find all of this little information very, very helpful. I don't. I never play on anything harder than normal. I am not. I don't want to invite ruin upon myself by even attempting to play on the harder difficulties. And this is just a lot of numbers. I don't like keeping track of all this stuff. I'd rather just have fun and play the game. And then this is the naval stuff. Let's see, what else? These are where you find your leaders. So these are my current leaders. I have a nice admiral. I've got 2 generals. This one's a really bad general, but he's a general, and I don't want to be recruiting more. These are important. So army and naval tradition both give even more modifiers to buff your armies and navies in combat. And you can read the effects under each. Army tradition is gained by forts being fully maintained and by winning battles, and even losing battles, but mostly by winning battles. The higher your army and navy tradition, the higher chance you have to get better generals and admirals. So keep your army tradition and navy tradition high if at all possible. One of the best ways to do that is, I'll talk about idea groups later. Then there's the morale. Morale is pretty much how much punishment your troops can take before they retreat. Your force limits. So force limit means the number of ships or regiments that you can have with and maintain. If you build over your force limit, you get some severe penalties. All units cost a little bit more, and if you're really building over your force limit, that can be really, really painful. These are your forts, and I'll have to look at the money in a minute. I don't know why I mothballed my forts. So you can mothball your forts, pay less maintenance, but you don't get the army tradition increase out of it. And of course these are your recruiting generals, conquistadors, admirals, explorers, and then you can give your ruler and your heir military command. This is not good. This is not always good. If you give your ruler military command, they can die a lot quicker, as with your heir. And if they die in a siege, you get like a -2 stability hit, which I'll talk about more in a minute. I should probably have got at this from a different way, like maybe left to right instead of right to left, but same thing with the heir. Your heir can die very quickly as well. And having heirs die is never a good thing. But let's go on to... Oh, I should probably talk about these. So, there are 4 categories when we're talking about leaders and pips. Fire. There are phases of combat. There are 4 phases of combat. Fire, shock, maneuver, and then there's morale and stuff. Siege pips allow you to get sieges done quicker, so when you're sieging down a fort. Maneuver is speed, and... No, are there only 2 phases of combat? Yeah, I should probably read the EU4 wiki again before I do my next stream, just to go over everything. Yeah, these pips just mean you do more damage in a certain phase of combat and you take less damage yourself. Higher these pips are, the better. And that's uniform. The higher the pips are, the better. Next, we're going to talk about the religion tab. So if we go over here, we can see that there are different religions throughout the world. There are... Europe is mostly Catholic right now, although part of Bohemia is Hussite. The Orthodox religion is mostly prevalent in the East. So Russia, or Muscovy at this time, and Moldavia, Lithuania, Bolchachia, and Byzantium. Sunni and Shia are in the Middle East, Coptic, yeah. But this religion tab tells you about your own religion. So first is your tolerance to the true faith. This means that in your provinces that are Catholic, you get nothing. There's no buffs for high tolerance, but in provinces of yours that are, in this case, heretic beliefs, Hussite, Orthodox, and Coptic, I believe you get an unrest penalty, which means that they're more likely to revolt, and a couple of other things. Same thing with heathens. You can raise the tolerance levels through events and decisions, and that means you'll lose some of those debuffs in those provinces. Each religion, by the way, this second divided piece is unique for every religion. Every religion has their own mechanics. Catholicism, for instance, the Pope assigns cardinals, right? And cardinals give papal influence, which allows you to become the controller of the Curia, which gives you a ton of stuff that you can see here. I'll give you a second to read it. You want to become the papal Curia. So I like to invest heavily in becoming the Curia. So what happens is when the Pope dies, which is somewhat often, the new Pope, that all the bishops and the cardinals gather to, or I think it's the cardinals, they all gather to elect the new Pope. And if you've put enough influence into the pot, and you have you get a chance to become the new papal controller, the new Pope who's elected is loyal to you, which makes you the Curia controller. I'll tell you about it when this next guy dies. You can buy indulgences to get more papal influence, but that's a lot of money. You can see all the chances of everyone else to become the controller. So, Yeah. These are not important right now. Then you can convert provinces that you own to your religion. But since we don't have any of those right now, we can talk about it later. Next is stability and expansion. This tab is one that you will visit a lot. It shows your war exhaustion, which if you let this get too high during war, you'll get a ton of penalties, unrest, manpower reduction, fighting ability reduction. Stability gives you a ton of good modifiers that you can read here. The higher your stability is, the better. That's it. You can raise stability with admin points. Quick note about monarch points. We'll have to go over here for it. Monarch points are one of the most important parts of the game. You generate monarch points by how good your leader is and your advisors. The higher your monarch point gain is, the better. Monarch points can be used for a ton of things, but most importantly, tech. You use monarch points to advance in tech. The higher your tech level, the better. You use tech to gain advantages over your opponents, to make your country better, etc., etc. While we're here, we'll talk about institutions. Institutions are like new schools of thought. For instance, the Renaissance. The Renaissance started here, in this campaign. It starts in a different place every time. When you embrace it, it gives you these two things, construction and dev cost. Sorry, my throat's a little bit scratchy. I don't usually talk this much. But until you embrace it, you have to pay more to get tech. So, see, it usually costs 600 monarch points to get this tech, and that there are penalties and buffs to modify that cost. Ideas are the same thing. You get idea groups, you pay for them with monarch points, and they give you buffs. Missions are self-explanatory. Each mission has conditions that you must meet. When you meet the conditions, they give you a reward. You have to complete the missions in order to actually get the rewards. Decisions and policies, self-explanatory. Every time you complete 2 idea groups, they give you policies that interact with other idea groups. As such, you'll get policies that give your country buffs. And then you have national decisions, which mostly this is just random things that you can hit that give your country buffs. Sometimes you'll change nations completely, like you can form Spanish nation. You don't have to worry about this. I'll get to it if I ever actually have to hit one. We're back here. Governing capacity is pretty much how many states you can have at once. Higher this is, the more states you can have at once. Overextension is big. So every time you conquer a province in like a war, you have to core it. Coring it gets rid of this overextension penalty. It makes it so that this province is now part of your empire. That's important. Overextension gives you heavy debuffs. Extremely heavy debuffs. It is the reason why you will usually not see someone take 40 provinces in a war. So you core them, it takes a little time, and it takes some admin points, but it's always worth it. This is your rebels. Shows you how long it will take for the rebels to rise up. Always keep an eye on this tab, because you always are going to have rebels. Almost always going to have rebels. This is your unrest. The higher this negative number is, the more of a chance you have to not have rebels. You don't have to worry about this expansion pushing yet. I'll talk about it when we get a colonist. This is the trade tab. All of this is important if you're playing on a country that's going to focus on trade. It's a lot of numbers. Just know that the higher most of these numbers are, the better your trading is going to be. You send a trader to certain trade nodes, and they will either collect or transfer trade power. So I put my first merchant in the Servilla trade node, which is the best trade node for Castile. I am collecting 5.79 ducats, a majority of the trade power in this node. Self-explanatory, I'm getting money. This is the economy tab. This shows all your income and all of your expenses. You can toggle stuff like colonies and missionaries to change how much money you're spending on them. Let's talk about corruption quick. Corruption is bad. Yeah, corruption's bad. Corruption gives all power costs. It makes it harder to do things. You don't want corruption. Just in general. There are some instances where corruption is good. Corruption gives a unrest reduction. So if you are like having hundreds of rebels, it may be worth running high corruption just to get that unrest penalty. But I've never been in a situation where that has happened. So you can root out corruption for variable amounts of money. Yeah. Army maintenance, you can reduce and add army and fleet maintenance to change how much money you're spending on both of those things. This number is income minus expenses. You want this to be green. Green means you're making money, red means you're losing money. You can take loans for 5 years. You get the money instantly, but you have to pay it back. Just like in the real world, you get charged interest, which is not good. No matter when you pay the loan back, you have to pay the loan, the principal, and all of the interest. So, yeah. It's a base currency. You get corruption, but you get money. It's self-explanatory. Inflation. Inflation gives all of these debuffs. You can read them. Pretty much everything costs a little bit more. This is the dev of our provinces. It's just a nice little handy tool to know exactly what your dev is without having to count it all up. You can reduce inflation. You can declare bankruptcy. You can raise war taxes. War taxes just gives more money while at war. It reduces maintenance of everything. But it costs monarchs points per month. So I don't touch it, unless I have a modifier that reduces that. Diplomacy. Click another country and you get this whole diplomacy screen. You can do a lot. I'm going to talk about it more next time. Then you've got the government. You get these country modifiers, which you can just mouse over and figure out. You can strengthen the government, but this doesn't matter until the third age. You can see the cultures you've got. Don't have to worry about that right now. You can change, or you can reform the government eventually when you get a certain amount of reform progress. I'll talk about that when it becomes relevant. And you can hire advisors, and they'll give you a buff, and they'll give you a certain amount of monarch points. And look and see all these different modifiers. I like to run full advisors because that gives me a lot of monarch points. Now, you could probably tell, but my throat is now killing me. I do not talk this much, ever. Starting to get scratchy, and so I didn't even get to unpause today, but I have to end it here. My voice is already giving up on me. But I didn't have a single sound problem. Oh, please tell me I didn't record the video. I didn't make a local recording. Well, thankfully this did stream to Twitch without any issues. No dropped frames, no slow frames. Yeah, you can hear my voice giving out. No dropped frames, no slow frames. No technical issues, no sound issues. Yay! 50 minutes. I was hoping for an hour or two today, but my voice won't let me. Sorry. My voice won't let me. I promise I will stream tomorrow. This video will be up on YouTube in probably about an hour. I'll stream tomorrow, and hopefully we'll actually get to unpause. Like I said earlier, if you have any questions, comments, you can put them in the YouTube chat section. I will be more than happy to go over them. I'll be more than happy to chat with you. I guess that's it. If you missed part 1, you can of course go on my YouTube channel and you can find that. Thank you, and I hope everyone has a good weekend, or if you're watching this later, I hope you have a good day. Yeah, see you tomorrow.